We've been doing interpretation here for a long time at Grand Canyon, 100 years. And we've been looking at the night sky almost just as long. Here's that slide I was showing you about Saturn as a brilliant object in the southern sky that was written in 1928. But again, we weren't really focusing on those deep sky objects or the pristine night skies until about the 1970s, when John Dobson and his San Francisco sidewalk astronomers came here and started seeding these star parties in national parks. Because as we all know here with this light pollution map, we started to really realize, particularly around the 60s and 70s, that light pollution was an incredible problem. And there were some last sanctuaries of night skies left, found primarily out west in these big national parks. And you can see everything basically east of the Mississippi River is whitewashed with excess white light or light pollution. And there are some dark patches left here out west. This map, one thing I like to point out is those white pock marks in the map where most people are living, represent areas where even the light pollution is so egregious, our scotopic vision no longer activates at night if you're walking out along the streets. And so the very hormones that start to activate our sleep and night vision, things like this, just they don't activate. And so we kind of are living in perpetual twilight. And so this just sort of highlighted the need for the National Park Service to start looking at night skies as a critical resource. And as early as the 1990s, the National Park Service was establishing a night skies team. It was basically just a couple of folks, folks like Chad Moore and Dan Dorisco, shout out to you guys, started really helping to seed more star parties and night sky events in national parks, started to train park rangers on providing night sky presentations, and started quantifying and qualifying the darkness of national parks, dark skies, monitoring the darkness of the sites. And so as about somewhere around 2010, that night skies team evolved into what's now known as the Natural Sounds and Night Skies Division in the National Park Service, that still operates to this day. And so, and then even in, the National Park Service has been around just over 100 years. We had our centennial in 2016. And at that time, we came out with this document called A Call to Action, where we sort of listed a whole bunch of bullet points on what we want to focus on going into the next century of stewardship and protection of these national parks. And happily, the 27th bullet point was titled Starry, Starry Night. Lead the way in protecting natural darkness as a precious resource and create a model for dark sky protection by establishing America's first dark sky cooperative on the Colorado Plateau in collaboration with other federal agencies, partners, and local communities. So the Colorado Plateau Dark Sky Cooperative, along with the Basin Range Dark Sky Cooperative, were formed, and we consider dark skies in the national parks, a very important resource to protect. And so Grand Canyon, we started looking at this for ourselves, this national park. Why should we be an international dark sky park? Well, just geographically speaking, we are just in prime conditions to be an international dark sky park. We're 7,000 feet above sea level, 8,000 feet on the north rim, above a good portion of the atmosphere in the dry desert Southwest. We experience almost 300 nights of clear skies a year. So even if light pollution weren't a problem around, the world, if all else were equal, that is to say, there was no light pollution anywhere, Grand Canyon would still offer this sharpness of starlight that is unparalleled throughout, most of the country, because of its natural geographical conditions. And that's why Arizona as a state, has some of the largest collection of optical research telescopes in the world because of these conditions. Not only the natural conditions, but the cultural legacy of Grand Canyon just screams international dark sky park. We have 11 traditionally affiliated tribes still very much intimately connected with Grand Canyon to this day. And, the cultural astronomy, the indigenous astronomy found within these tribal communities is again, unparalleled throughout most of the United States, incredibly rich. When you go around the greater Grand Canyon region, the whole Colorado Plateau, Southwest region, and you start finding these, great structures like kivas here that align themselves to true north, or you find, walls with dwellings that have, interplays of light and shadow that anticipate the solstices and the equinoxes, or petroglyphs, carvings in the rocks that celebrate the arrival of the solstices through dazzling displays of light and shadow, like here with the sun dagger petroglyph at Chaco, or pictographs, that commemorate ancient celestial events like supernova and eclipses and comets. Star ceilings that hold up the alcoves of the Southwest as the real stars do the celestial sphere, as we can see here in Canyon de Chelly National Monument, and constellation cannons that really rival in depth and beauty the Greek constellation cannon, for example. As you can see here with the Navajo constellation chart, we really start to understand that to truly appreciate a region is to understand how the indigenous peoples of the land use the landscape as a palette to understand the workings of the sun, the moon, and the stars, and how that regional night sky in turn reflects back down the land and the people. We place our local heritage in the stars, plants, animals, our gods, our ancestors, and it is as important to understand what is written in a regional night sky as it is to study the local geology and ecology. So the indigenous astronomy is incredible here. We have incredible history of astronomy here as well. Not a lot of people know this one, but back in the 1920s, what was going to be the largest research telescope in the world was nearly built on the rim of the Grand Canyon in the late 1920s. As I say, George Ritchie and George Hale, they sort of were scheming on this. They came to the canyon. They took several pictures of the canyon and planned to build the largest telescope on the rim of the canyon to study primarily Mars. This is an actual picture of the canyon taken in the early 1900s by probably George Hale. Superimposed on it is a conceptual drawing of this proposed observatory. This was published in a French magazine in the late 1920s. And this was the idea. Well, this never got built, mainly for administrative reasons. The Park Service is still kind of figuring out what it was at this point. Do we want observatories in these national parks? We don't know. So they sort of nixed this idea. But it was published in this magazine, and the New York Times picked up on this proposed observatory. And many columnists in the New York Times were calling this thing the Desert Watchtower. And if any of you guys have been to Grand Canyon or know about Grand Canyon, there's famously this structure that was built called the Desert View Watchtower by an architect named Mary Jane Coulter. And a lot of historians actually think that she got the idea for the watchtower, if not the name, just the name, from this proposed observatory. And in fact, she ended up building the watchtower in the exact same spot as this proposed observatory was supposed to be built. So pretty cool history there. We also have an incredible history of of exploration into space and into the night skies with the Apollo astronauts. There's this great history of the Apollo astronauts before going to the moon, coming to the Grand Canyon and training on the processes of geology so that they could apply these processes to their forays on the lunar surface. So here we have Jim Lovell in the center here studying geology. They literally came here to the park, they hiked down to the bottom of the canyon and hiked back up, and guided by geologists, and learned about geology. Here's one group. There are three separate groups of the Apollo astronauts at Phantom Ranch at the very bottom of the Grand Canyon. And then they hiked back up Bright Angel Trail the next day. And if you guys guess in your heads here who you think this might be, you can kind of tell. It gives it away a little bit on its backpack there on the top. But this is indeed Neil Armstrong looking out at the Grand Canyon a mere 5 years before he would step foot on another world. And I always love thinking, man, what was he thinking in this shot, looking at one of the 7 natural wonders of the world before leaving this planet? I like to think he was imbued by the spirit of John Muir, a famous naturalist who came to the Grand Canyon once and said of it, "The view down the gulf of color and over the rim of its wonderful wall, more than any other view I know, leads us to think of our Earth as a star with stars swimming in light, every radiant spire pointing the way to the heavens." Anyways, we have all this history that just say, yes, we should become a dark sky park. So we started to pursue it. And the first thing to do is obviously to quantify the darkness of your site. So our night skies team You can see there, Dan Dorisco came down and they measured this as early as 2007. We've done several readings since then. This is, an all sky view of the canyon. We took some initial sky quality meter metrics. 21.8 magnitudes per square arc second is kind of where we hover around. And in different areas of the park, depending on where you're at, we do get portal 1 skies. We do get we get portal 2 skies as well. So yes, certainly incredibly dark. So we fit the bill there. So the next move was then to get the funding for this, because this is, like Benny Mai was saying, a massive ship to turn when it comes to a national park. I mean, we are the only national park in the entire country with a K through 12 school inside it. We have 3,000 people who live here. So it is a community as much as it is a national park. So it's a really unique situation. And so we initially, Grand Canyon Conservancy, our nonprofit partner, got generous donations from folks like Joe Orr and the Orr Family Foundation and many others to hire a night skies inventory lighting specialist, a coordinator. So we hired her in 2013 and 14, and her job was to actually go around the entire park and catalog all the lights and develop systems to be able to track the progress of our retrofit efforts. So we, in this whole process, we came up with programs to be able to input our data out in the field, that would populate Excel spreadsheets that would then get transferred over to this incredible GIS program that maps the entire park. And so you can see here in this section, we have every single light in the park monitored, and we have information on every single light when you click on it in this GIS map. Green means they're retrofitted. Red means they weren't retrofit. This was a very old slide, so obviously there's a lot more green than red now. But it gives you a sense of the care we took to track all these lights. Because the fact of the matter is, there are tons of lights in this park. We inventoried initially over 5,000 exterior light fixtures in this park. So here's the distribution: 5,094. Most of those, as you can see on the bottom left, South Rim Village, are in the South Rim Village, but we have several districts in the park: the North Rim, Desert View, the bottom of the canyon at Phantom Ranch. 34% of those lights were already happily night sky friendly. And of course, we know if you want to become initially a dark sky park, you have to have 67% of your lights dark sky friendly. So we had to actively retrofit over 1,500 fixtures just to meet that initial status of an international dark sky park. So you can see the distribution on the map here. Most of them in the bottom right, the big black chunk there is the South Rim Village. To the north of that is the North Rim. Over to the far right is Desert View. And then you can see way over on the left, a few lonely lights out at the one ranger station out at Toraweep, which is totally off the grid, very remote part of the park. One ranger lives out there. But yes, when we did do this whole process, I went out there to make sure that we retrofitted even those 3 or 4 lights that are out at Toraweep. And as you can see here, totally solar panels. They collect their own water out there. Pretty cool operation at Toraweep Valley. So our first process then was we divided the park up into phases, several phases. And the first one was to hit sort of the big historic district, the rim of the canyon, where most visitors are visiting. So that's all the historic hotels, things like that. We actually divided all the lights up into several different categories. If, in terms of what we were buying, if they were buildings built before like the 1956, they were more historic buildings, we had a certain type of light. If they were built within the Mission 66 era, that is to say the 50-year anniversary of the national parks, when a lot of buildings were being erected and sort of the Park Service got a facelift. So a lot of visitor centers were built in that time. We have certain lights for that period. And then everything modern, post 1966, we had special lights for the more modern buildings. So we started by, the historic buildings. And this was, one of the original lights that we had. We affectionately called these the UFO lights. And these would line the entire rim of the canyon, and you could walk along the rim, just see them all along the rim of the historic district. If you go up onto this high plateau and look back down along the rim, you can see them and they're very egregious. And this is front of the El Tovar Hotel, the historic El Tovar Hotel. We retrofit them with these kind of lights. And you see these are these gooseneck lights aimed down, very aesthetically pleasing to the era of that building. We even took care to order, the gray enamel on the inside so that the albedo would be reduced on the inside of the fixture. The lamp itself is tucked up nice and deep into the fixture itself, and they were very warm, below 2700K lamps that we put into these fixtures. And so we started doing the historic district. You can see a bunch of before and afters. Here's the Arizona room, now called the Arizona Steakhouse, right there in the rim of the canyon. Before on the left, you have what we retrofit on the right. And this is the night sky difference. The before on the top, your camera is completely blown out by the excess light, the glare from the light. But here you can see on the bottom, you can see the title of the restaurant. You can even see the clouds in the background starting to come out. Because again, we're not about eliminating all the lights, right? We want to keep people safe and be able to operate at night. But this isn't a mutually exclusive thing, right? We can light just what we need when we need, and also reveal the night skies above us. And so here's a great example of El Tovar. The before totally blowing us out. On the bottom, you can see the clouds in the background. You can see that the safety ramp is still lit up for people to come up there, but it's just much more subtle, much smarter lighting. We were even able to do some historic restoration work through this process. This is an original photo, a historic photo of the original lights, I should say, at the El Tovar Hotel. You can see them hanging there. At some point along the way, before the National Historic Preservation Act, forbade the parks from doing this type of thing, we got rid of those lights and we replaced them with these lights. They were okay, but you can see on the right side there, they're kind of on those pillars and they would shine out, producing a lot of glare, just a little bit unnecessary. So we were able to do historic restoration in that we got rid of those lights. We hired somebody to build the original lights again, and then we just put some really warm lamps inside of them, getting rid of the fixtures on the pillars there. So we were able to improve the historical integrity of the building while also being night sky friendly. So this is just a great example of the win factors when it comes to improving your park lighting, just to be smarter about it. So we were moving this on and on. This took several years, of retrofitting 1,500 lights. And in May of we had until about June of 2019 to become certified as an international dark sky park, because the Dark Sky International had given us provisional international dark sky park status in 2016. So that gives you 3 years basically to the leverage to finish out this project. And in May of 2019, I walked outside of my old cabin here, and I bumped into a ladder that was changing out a gentleman was changing out my fixture. And I'm spreading a rumor around the park that this fixture was the very last fixture we needed to get over that 67% benchmark and become an international dark sky park. So you guys got to help me spread that rumor. But as soon as my light was changed, we officially became an international dark sky park in 2019 and celebrated that in June of that year. But that was only the first process, right? 67% initially. Dark Sky International then gives you 5 years to become 90% compliant. And so we still had 1,700 fixtures to go from 2019 to 2024, this year, to become 90% compliant. And that meant hitting other districts of the park, one of which is Phantom Ranch. Now, less than 5% of people who visit the canyon take one step below the rim, let alone going down all the way to Phantom Ranch. But believe it or not, there's about 79 fixtures down there in this backcountry site at the bottom of the Grand Canyon. And there's bunks down there and a campground and a little cantina that you can go and get food in. And it's a great place, but there are lights down there. And for many years, you can see the Park Service and the concessionaires down there. We did our best to try to make it as dark as possible down there. We'd put red bulbs and things like that in our residences down there. We'd even put tape inside some of these fixtures to reduce the glare, as you can see. But this was all just sort of MacGyvered, you know, through the years. We really needed to properly change out all these funky fixtures that had just been accumulating over the 100 years. I don't even know what's going on with this fixture at all. But it's actually pretty dark sky friendly. But we replaced 79 fixtures down at Phantom Ranch. And I know Betty Maya visited up here a few years ago, and we went out on the rim of the canyon. And I remember her saying, you know, she was out photographing the canyon. And she said, "Oh, are those like some campfires or something like that going down at the bottom by the river?" And I said, "No, that's the entirety of Phantom Ranch." And whereas before you know, it blared from the bottom of the canyon, you could see all the lights. It just looked like a couple of smoldering campfires down there now, because the lights are so improved. So it's really cool to see. We even fixed the interior lights of the campground bathroom down there, because we would always be like, oh, you know, dark sky friendly this, dark sky friendly that, wear your red headlamps, things like that. And then you go into the bathroom and you'd be blasted by these fluorescent lights and totally kill your night vision. And so we replaced those with much more night sky friendly and warmer bulbs. And then we went to the North Rim and did the same thing. There was about 200 plus fixtures on the North Rim. So again, just a sense of the immensity of this project here. I'm just scrolling through some of the things that we did on the North Rim. And as all told, we started to get those green dots filled up on our GIS program here, as you can see. And this is a much more recent photo. And you can see most of the South Rim here is green. The purple there represents private in-holding structures. So those are exempt. Black represents we removed them just altogether, which is night sky friendly move. And then blue are emergency lights, and then red obviously is non-compliant lights. So we still got some work to go, but we're proud to announce that as of January of this year, we became 90% compliant, and we celebrated that this year. Dark Sky International came up to the Grand Canyon and awarded us with the certificate of acknowledgement, and we celebrated that at this year's Grand Canyon Star Party on the last evening. So still got a few more years to get 100% compliance, but we are an international dark sky park. This is a little bit old school with the old school name of Dark Sky International here. But Tyler Nordgren, many of you guys might know his artwork. He designed our sign, and this sits right in front of our visitor center. And the other aspect of this, of course, is outreach. Then now that we have the dark sky, the park 90% compliant, and we are a dark sky park, we have to show Dark Sky International that we are celebrating this through public programming. And this just gives you a sense of the sort of scale of our programming at this point. You know, we did nearly 300 astronomy programs last year and contacted nearly 50,000 people, 125 astronomer volunteers, and lots more fun statistics. We celebrated actually the 34th annual Grand Canyon Star Party this year. This is a massive event. If you guys haven't been, I highly recommend you come next year. It's June 21st through the 28th. It's an 8-night celebration of night skies. We have over 120 volunteer astronomers bringing all their telescopes, and we contacted over 10,000 visitors this year at the 2024 Star Party. So it is a massive event, the largest night sky festival in the National Park Service, a beautiful, pristine night skies, and just a lot, like Betty Maya said, a lot of like-minded people celebrating the night skies for 8 whole nights, filling up our theaters and our plazas with programs and special guest speakers, many of which are from, you know, we try to include several of our 11 traditionally affiliated tribal members to speak on indigenous astronomy. You know, in 2023, we had 5 of our 8 special guest speakers were from Navajo and Zuni and Hopi and Paiute to talk about the indigenous night skies of the region. So we're super proud of that. And just some stats here really quick for you guys. 10,000 people, 80,000 people looked through telescopes. That's 80,000 eyeballs looking through eyepieces. You know, nearly 5,000 people came to these theater programs. Just an awesome event. And so I highly recommend you guys come. We dedicated it this year to Dean Kettleson. He was the founder of Grand Canyon Star Party. Many of you probably know him. He's just really, he was really active in this community. He passed away, unfortunately, in August of 2023. So this was the first year we did not get to have Dean Kettleson at the Star Party. He founded the event in 1991 and came to every single event through 2023. So we dedicated this year to him, and we're really happy and proud to announce that this year, Dean Kettleson won the 2023 National Excellence in Volunteerism Award through the National Park Service. Only one volunteer in the entire country wins this award yearly, and Dean posthumously was honored with this award for his work in creating the Grand Canyon Star Party. So super proud of that. Other programs we have other than the Grand Canyon Star Party, this is a big one. This is called the Grand Canyon Astronomer in Residence program. It's very similar to the Artist in Residence program that a lot of national parks have. We have an Artist in Residence program as well, but we also have this Astronomer in Residence program where we invite astronomers, dark sky advocates, researchers, writers, artists, musicians to come and live at the park and focus their medium through the lens of night skies, light pollution, and pristine natural darkness. And it's just been an awesome program. We've had 10 residents so far, so 10 Astronomer in Residence alumni. Dr. Tyler Norgan was the first one. He came to the park, provided a bunch of programming. He created this amazing graphic that he created on site here. Residents get to live in the historic Verkamp's residence, mere steps from the rim of the Grand Canyon, and live here for about a month to 6 weeks, providing programs and doing creative projects to really let people know about the diversity and the beauty found in night skies. So here we have Dean Regas. Many of you guys might recognize him, the host of the Looking Up podcast, former astronomer at Cincinnati Observatory. He came to a bunch of night sky programs through his residency. Ima Barrera, who has spoken for Dark Sky International before, she came and took a bunch of incredible photos of the night skies during her residency from the South Rim all the way out to Tuweep here on the right side, which is way in the remote parts of the backcountry. Even a poet, Lauren Camp, she's now the poet laureate of New Mexico for the entire state. She came here and wrote poetry about the night skies for her residency. And she was so prolific in her time here, she actually published a book through Grand Canyon Conservancy called In Old Sky, based on the poems that she wrote about the night skies. Folks like Dr. Daniel Fleisch from Wittenberg University, an award-winning professor, came and did all sorts of amazing 25 different programs to packed audiences, reaching out to our school children here at the park. Folks like Dr. Jennifer Hoffman, who came and did some really on-the-ground collaborative projects with visitors out on the rim of the canyon during the equinox. Folks like Kevin Schindler, historian at Lowell Observatory, just doing some incredible story work here. Dr. Cameron Hummels, from Caltech, came and did astronomy on taps and all sorts of really fun live imaging programs. Dr. Ashley Pagnotta came here, and she did a really cool one where she did outreach programs, but she also was weaving a light pollution map of the United States and inviting people to add threads where they're from that indicated the level of light pollution that they experience in their hometowns. And then finally, Dr. Adine Denton, she came here and she created an interpretive dance on night skies and geology here, and we filmed it. You can find that on our park webpage, and she performed it for people while also giving amazing diversity of programming. So one really quick plug, the applications for 2025 are open right now. It closes on July 25th. So if you want to apply and potentially be one of our astronomers in residence, go to this webpage below and apply to the program. It's open again for another week or so. Aside from our Grand Canyon Astronomer Residence program, park rangers do our constellation talks and full moon walks and all sorts of things when we can to fill in those gaps of time. But we've also started to branch out and do a few more things. We recently started the Astronomy and Volunteer in Parks program, where we invite amateur astronomers, mostly targeting amateur astronomers, retirees or people just getting started in their careers in education and outreach, park rangers, things like that, to come and work at the park, live at the park, and provide consistent astronomy programming. And we are actually hiring for those positions as well. So if you want to come hang out and join this amazing outreach effort, we're hiring for September 1st to December 1st, and we provide housing and the telescopes and things needed, and you just share your love and expertise of the night skies. So visit that webpage if you're interested in volunteering and come and hanging out with me for the fall and the winter. We're also doing some really fun things just to wrap up, guys. We are trying to work on creating a star train in partnership with Grand Canyon Railway. Great Basin up in northern Nevada has a similar star train where you get off the train at night and then you're treated to a star party in the park, and then you go back at the end of the star party. So we're really excited to start to work on that and hopefully try to do our first star train sometime in the fall and winter this year. And then finally, we are working also to through our nonprofit partner Grand Canyon Conservancy. We're working on plans to create some sort of forum that all of these programs can sort of happen in one place, like a Great Basin National Park astronomy amphitheater, perhaps an observatory. As you see, Glacier National Park has an observatory, Chaco has an observatory, Great Basin has an observatory, and Grand Canyon wants an observatory too. So we want to create just a place where all of this amazing outreach and programming can happen in an efficient and comfortable and accessible way. And so, again, you guys have all probably heard this story before, but just this wraps it up always for me so nicely. It's just kind of coming back to that point of why are we doing all this, right? And, there's famously this picture of the earthquake that happened a couple of decades ago and knocked out the power grid of this community. And this gentleman came out and took a shot of the night skies, which were completely restored temporarily as the grid was knocked out, and you could see instantly the Milky Way revealed. And then the gentleman went out the next night once the lights were restored, and that's the view he ordinarily gets to see. And so it's just asking that question: what type of world do we want to live in? And happily, I don't have to preach to you guys so much. Everybody here knows what type of world we want to live in. But the question is, how do we effectively reach out to those who might not know about this? And I argue Grand Canyon National Park is one of the best places on the planet for dark skies outreach, because there's no other place on the planet, or nearly no other place on the planet, that has, if you think about it, as much infrastructure whilst maintaining pristine night skies as a place like Grand Canyon. You usually, if you have lots of hotels and things like that, well, great, but you're in downtown Las Vegas and you can see 5 stars, right? And 3 of them are airplanes. But if you go out to Big Bend National Park or somewhere out in the wilderness, and it's like pristine night skies, but it's very difficult for a lot of people to get there. Well, Grand Canyon has dozens of hotels and campgrounds and all that infrastructure to support 6 million visitors a year, but we're also maintaining some of the darkest night skies in the United States. And so that is an incredible combination to take this place to the next level and really make this one of the premier places on the planet for spreading this message about protecting pristine national darkness and fighting the problems of light pollution. And so I invite you all to join me in that effort. Reach out for me if you have any questions or comments, ideas, things like that. But this obviously takes way more than me. There are so many people in this park who are working on this effort, and so many of you and so many partners, external partners, that are coming together to make this place the hub, one of the main hubs for dark sky preservation worldwide. And so it does take all of us, and this, this is your national park, by the way. And so, you are very much part of this effort as well. So thank you all for your attention. And I look forward to working with many of you and continue to work with many of you into the future. So with that, I will stop the program and maybe open it up for questions or something like that. Let's see.
Well done, Rader. That was such a beautiful and inspiring presentation. Thank you for sharing with all of us today, and congratulations. That's a huge accomplishment, and it is no small feat. So congratulations to you and to all of the staff at the Grand Canyon for the incredible work. And I think you summed it up nicely, but it is so astounding to think of the amount of infrastructure and people and restaurants and everything that exists within some of the darkest and best interpreted night skies in the world. So really excited to see kind of how this turns out in the future and how this keeps progressing and what people I think this is going to be an incredible place, and it already is an incredible place of people to go and to be transformed into dark sky advocates to bring it home to where they are. And I'm sure we get a lot of people joining dark sky because they visited Grand Canyon. So a
Well
huge thank
said.
you. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, there's definitely a couple of questions. The first one came from Anna on Zoom, and it was when you were talking about the one of the park documents that had the starry night. Is that document available online? I guess maybe what is it called so that she could Google it and find it?
Yes, it's called a call to action. Um, Call to action National Park Service. I have the link here. I can drop it into the chat. And yes, that is publicly available.
Great. Thank you so much. Yeah, and I think yeah,
And
would establish the Dark Sky Cooperative, which is where I used to work at
yeah,
one point as well. So I'm very familiar with that document. Jim on Facebook, we love our Facebook questions. Jim asks, at some point, can you comment on how many lights were eliminated? Certainly out of thousands of lights, lots can be removed, turned off only for emergency, put a switch on it, or limit the duration or season of use.
yeah, I think off the top of my head, it's probably in the ballpark around 60 to 100 fixtures were probably just all out eliminated. A lot of them in Trailer Village, if anybody's familiar with that. If you visited the park before, there's a big section you can stay in called Trailer Village. A lot of those fixtures were just totally removed. And then throughout the village and several at Phantom Ranch as well. So I'd say somewhere about 60 to 100. So not a big percentage overall, but still somewhat significant.
Awesome. Thank you. Let's see, a lot of questions here. Are you interested in sharing your email, or what's the best way people can contact you or contact the kind of just get in touch, stay involved? What would you recommend?
I don't know if I dropped it in the chat, so that's my email. Feel free to reach out if you got questions, or again you wanna help volunteer through the Astronomy Volunteer Program, or apply to the Astronomer Residence Program, or just advice on how to visit the park and stuff like that. Part of my job is to help you all out in that. So
Cool.
feel free.
Great. Yeah, I shared the links to both of the programs as well in the Zoom and the Facebook. So I feel like we have a lot of people who would be great for both of those positions on this call today. So really hoping people apply.
One
And
thing I'll say too about the Astronomer Residence Program is, like, really try to, if you're wanting to apply, come up with a unique way of being able to contribute to our understanding of dark skies, right? It's those are the applications that tend to get a lot of attention. Is how coming at it from perhaps a perspective that some of the prior residents haven't come at it before. And we have a list on the webpage of all the prior residents, the alumni, and what they sort of brought to the table. Because the idea with that program is to sort of create a whole greater than the sum of its parts. When you look at all the different various angles that people are coming at that residency program with, you start to understand just how beautiful, diverse, and intricate the understanding of dark skies can become. So that's just one piece of advice for that. And it's vetted by an independent jury and everything like that. So I don't have control over that as much as I do the astronomy volunteer program, which I directly hire for. So
nice. Cool. So we got the in for that one. Um,
yeah.
okay. I like this question here from Jim. He asks, Rader, did you get any resistance or pushback to the changeover of lighting?
Yeah, sure. There was a little bit of pushback. I think it's nothing atypical from what we would see in communities or anything like that. Just the safety part of it was definitely something that people talked about. Um, uh, Not so much from the visitor standpoint. I don't think it was more like internal community standpoint. But all in all, I think I'm really proud of this community and this park because everybody seems to really embrace it. And just the other day, there was an email from one of my coworkers who was like, he's sent a picture of a fixture that was producing some glare in a random building. He's like, this is not like compliant. Can we do
Fix
something
it.
about this? And so yeah, and so everybody sort of, now it's part of the culture up here, and we all really like our darkness. The one interesting one I would say would be things like holiday lights. Those are
Mm-hmm.
those are things you want to pick your battles with. We have in
Exactly.
our lightscape
Yeah.
management plan, like people are able to have them for a few months in the winter. I love holiday lights. I think it gives it a lot of cheer and camaraderie and community up here, and it's a big thing up here. But so you don't want to go and say turn off your Christmas lights. You're not going to win that
No,
battle.
that's not the hill we
Um,
want to die on.
it's not the hill you want to die on. As long as you have some reasonable accommodations around that, I
Yeah.
think we're good. And so yeah.
Great. There's a couple questions here about just kind of wildlife. Have you noticed any changes in wildlife or nocturnal activity in wildlife since the changing of these lights?
We haven't done any official studies on that, so I can't really speak to anything official coming out of the park. Trying to think. Um, Yeah, no, I really I can't think of anything in terms of change of wildlife. I mean, we all know in general, this is good. It's a lack of looking at it through that lens. But in terms of obviously of you know nocturnal animals, half mammals on the planet are nocturnal, and so that's super important. We always look at the charismatic megafauna of we always use sea turtles and things like that as those big examples of why light pollution is bad. But really, what our park tends to focus on as well are large scale phenological changes that happen as a result of a changing climate or say light pollution. So that is to say big migrations of birds and how we're affecting the movement of birds, or the movement and behaviors of bugs and insects. And those are things, as folks like researchers in this field are just starting to understand just how dire those implications are. And so I would say it's been good overall, but we haven't produced any official studies
No
yet.
official studies. Cool. Well, that's awesome. There's a couple of questions here. I mean, just about generally like Grand Canyon's work in the larger community. Like, have you worked with kind of any of the nearby cities or towns that may be impacting Grand Canyon's light dome? Like, I know I could see Tuba City when I was there.
Yeah.
And then, Deborah kind of asked a similar question, like, you know, and maybe you could just share advice for our advocates. Like if you are out there in the community kind of trying to advocate for this, like what are your recommendations in trying to persuade people to change their lighting to be dark sky friendly?
Great questions. I've been working pretty closely with the Tucson Town Council over the last couple of years, which is the gateway community to the park, which is kind of the park's immediate biggest threat when it comes to light pollution. I've given several presentations at their town council. That's one thing I would recommend is just building a presentation sort of like this and going to your town councils and speaking passionately about these efforts is a great first step. And I've seen that work so many times, as I'm sure you have, Betty Maya. Regular people like you and me making incredible grassroots changes in communities just by introducing this concept in intelligent and passionate way. So we're working with Tucson. I collaborate with Flagstaff Dark Skies Coalition and a lot of the Lowell Observatory and the efforts going down in Flagstaff, Arizona, which of course is the world's first international dark sky place from the Dark Sky Places program in 2001. But indeed, we are looking at communities like Cameron, like Tuba City. We'd even like to, really start to engage our tribal communities and the Havasupai people, for example, and Zuni and Paiute. Of course, the southern Paiute, the Kaibab Bandit Paiutes is the world's first international dark sky nation. Back in 2016, that's on the north rim of the Grand Canyon, and we would love other tribal communities to follow that. And we want to provide our resources and sort of the leverage of the national park to help that along as much as we can, because to help those surrounding communities is to help Grand Canyon's night skies, right? Because as we all know, light pollution doesn't follow political borders. And so this is very much on our radar now and into the future.
Awesome. Yeah, if there's one thing the Grand Canyon has, it is resources and leverage, and you have taken both of those and just soared magnificently to create such an incredible pinnacle of dark sky outreach and tourism and education. And from being at the dark sky or the Star Party, the Grand Canyon Star Party, I was amazed at how many people were there, like how many visitors came through, and just how many people go to the Grand Canyon at all. Like it's incredible, like just the stream river of people that are there all the time. It's such a great place for outreach and education, and it is in great hands with you and all of the dark sky people at Grand Canyon at the helm. So thank you so much for what you're doing. If you have an opportunity to visit, please do. Please support Grand Canyon. I'm sure there's like a Facebook page, right? And Instagram and other ways people can stay involved and up to date with what you guys are doing. Watch Rader's videos if you haven't. The Night Requiem one, I think, is maybe the one that makes me cry. But it's like a beautiful.
That's the one that gets people.
Yeah, it's a really good one. All of them are really great. So please check those out. I am sorry we didn't get to everybody's questions, but we are at the top of the hour. So I guess I will just leave it to you, Rader, if you have any last words you'd like to share with others, and otherwise just give you a huge thank you and gratitude for your time today and your time in your life to create such a beautiful dark sky park.
Thank you to you all. Thank you for your time. Betty Maya, thank you for inviting me. Shout out to all my the astronomy volunteers I see here that attend Grand Canyon Star Party. I see a lot of familiar faces out there. Hope to see you guys next year, and I hope to see a bunch of you all next year and into the future. Thank you.